By the end of 1995, Meekum and Kinney had assembled their core team. They approached the new year with a solid business plan, a beta version of the software, and an enthusiastic and talented team. But would it be enough to stand up to the crucible of Adam Smith's free market economy?
It was really slow to get savings implemented, which meant it was really slow for us to get our 2.5% sales commissions, which was killer because we were getting no revenue. And it was really, really slow to get them to move forward and agree to the next piece of work. So 1996, this was the beginning of 96. 96 turned out to be a long, gut-wrenching process of trying to commercialize the business.
When I arrived, I found, I think it was 10 or 11 people sort of all crammed into a floor in the Century building. So I found incredibly bright, energetic people running around trying to do stuff for the one customer that we had at that time, or the potential customer that we had at the time. We were getting ready to execute a pilot. So it was sort of great, brilliant people, but executional disorganization. So it was I'm sort of an operations person, and so I looking at how are we going to execute this. There was no organization. We were kind of inventing things on the fly.
We actually found that if you raised your prices and made this thing more expensive to the buyers, that you forced a decision to go higher in the organization where you could get a more empowered executive who could either decide yes or no and really in fact make it happen. As long as we stayed too low in the organization, we had a hard time getting repeat because that person that was too far down the organization didn't have the budget, they didn't have the clout, they didn't have a broad enough portfolio of needs that they needed to fulfill. So once we were done with their little project, they were kind of satisfied, but we needed to get on to other buyers.
1995 was easy. What's hard was 1996, 97. Commercializing a business, really getting sales, making your revenues meet or exceed your expenses. That's hard. And most companies of the internet era never got through their equivalent of our 1996, 97. We did.
It wasn't sales, it was evangelism in the beginning. And it was if you were part of free markets, I don't care what you did, you were part of the sales organization at that point. This is pre any organized sales force or anything else, because you had to evangelize that this was a good idea. You had to get people to believe to try to do something that they've never done before.
Glenn and his team first had come in to meet with us initially 7 or 8 years ago. At that time, it was supposed to be a 4-hour meeting. We kicked them out after 10 minutes. Again, we just thought that made it sick to our stomach thinking about this mechanism.
I remember the early goings of free market were not always easy for them. And, they had a business model where they were going to be paid a long-term commission from the winning supplier, something like that. And one day, Glenn came down to one of our Supply Management Council meetings down in Southbury, and I could see his face a little bit mournful, and I said, Glenn, you've got the I've run out of cash loop. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, how would you like me to pay for your expenses and pay you the third day of the month, so you don't have to worry about cash flow? And then, because I don't want you to go bankrupt, and I want you to move forward with us. We need you.
So the bottom line is on 1997 was that we got that first deal with Kent, with United Technologies, starting in May. And then that was some cash flow. I mean, now we, for the first time, had some flow, like we knew some money was going to arrive every month. And Kent agreed to pay us on 10-day terms. So it arrived, not only was it going to arrive, but it did arrive.
I knew that this was important for free markets. And Glenn and I had a lot of talks along the way about how to set this up so it was mutually beneficial for free markets and for us. Because I needed free markets to succeed. I wanted them to succeed.
With Kent Britton, we found, an entrepreneur, someone who was willing to, within the context of a big organization, he was willing to be an innovator. He knew he was dealing with a small organization with innovative technology, but he was willing to trust that if he would make a big commitment to us, we would have no choice but to make a big commitment to him. And so, he did. He managed to capture our attention And the growth of late 97 all the way through 98 was very much about how we grew our capabilities to meet United Technologies' needs.
I thought they were crazy. Okay, I mean, the reality of it was that Kent met Glenn first, and when I had a chance to meet Glenn and Sam Kinney, I said, these guys are 15 years old, what can they do for me? And they look very young and very green, and I'm a factory guy that grew up in United Technologies, and so I learned something from that experience, that you always have to have an open mind to things that you don't know about, because the relationship that I've had with free markets, and particularly with Glenn, has been a great one.
Yeah, free markets was, for a long time, our arms and legs. There's just a tremendous amount of data gathering involved, and at that time we didn't have the systems that we do now to do a lot of these things. And then they knew how to format, they knew how to write disciplined RFQ and all this sort of stuff. And they taught us a lot. Also, you know, the free markets people didn't have that sort of consultancy feeling. And so they were able to pass seamlessly inside our organization as if they were part of it. And this was a tremendous assistance to us. Rather than have a we, they, it was all we.
Now, our streak of luck really began with the meeting with Kent Britton in April of 97. We kind of were in the bleakest of times in April 97, and then we just turned to gold. Everything went well.
I remember our calendar, the company calendar, went from counting bids by quarter to bids by day, or by week and then by day, which was huge. And then it was no longer bids, it was customers. So our customer count went from like 3 or 4 to, we had at one point, I think, by 1999, we had somewhere around 40 customers at that point. So it hit, what we call long-term customers. So you essentially doubled everything you were doing each year in those 2 years. And it was, the growth was tremendous.
By January 99, all kinds of people were calling us, trying to get information. They were all, corporate America was desperate to get into the internet. I call the Christmas of 98 was the internet Christmas. We had one big article in the Journal that year, the Wall Street Journal, kind of the cover of the whole business section. I was on the cover of the Business Week, top 10 internet entrepreneurs issue, and had my picture taken with Mary Meeker and with Meg Whitman from eBay and Jeff Bezos and all those people. We were really, really at the center of the storm. We'd started 1998 with probably 35 employees. We ended 1998 with 108 employees. So over in the Century Building, by the end of 98, we were crammed into every little place we could find in that building. And it was very clear we couldn't stay there. It just wasn't big enough for us. We started looking for space in the summer of 98, and we ended up doing a great deal on what became Free Market Center. And we signed that lease in about October or November of 98, right around the eBay IPO. Things were going really well. We knew we were growing fast. And we ended up moving in March 1999. We moved into this building. And we had a huge celebration that day. It was great moving here. And then the big celebration too was when we renamed the building, because as the year 1999 progressed, we entered the year with 108 employees. We ended 1999 at the time of our IPO with 367 employees. We signed the lease for a total of 10 floors, plus an option on 7 more, and we made a requirement of that deal that they rename the building and allow us to put signs on the building.
Hi, welcome to Free Markets and welcome to Free Market Center.
My parents were visiting from out of town. My parents are from Kentucky. And Glenn was explaining, we're going to be the largest tenant in this big building. And my dad said, well, Glenn, if you're the largest tenant, I think they ought to call it the Free Markets Building. And Glenn said, I think that's a good idea.